And now I'm going to introduce Dr. Veneziano, who is a colleague of mine that I adore. She graduated from the College of Osteopathic Medicine at Western University Health Sciences in 2000 and completed a traditional rotating internship at Long Beach Medical Center through New York College of Osteopathic Medicine. And then she did a family practice residency at the Colorado Springs Osteopathic Foundation in 2003, and she's board certified by the ACOSP. She served as adjunct clinical faculty for us at Truro College of Osteopathic Medicine since 2008, as well as at the College of Osteopathic Medicine of the Pacific since 2001. And she served as a staff physician at the Petaluma Valley Hospital in Santa Rosa. She also has a solo osteopathic manual medicine practice where she's been since 2003. Her approach to osteopathic medicine is rooted in cranial osteopathy, which is using a hands-on, evidence-based therapeutic practice that sources both Eastern and Western philosophies to support the body's ability to heal itself. And she's here today to talk to us about wellness, our own wellness, which is really a critical and sometimes overlooked skill required to sustain a teaching clinical practice. So Dr. Veneziano, I'm going to hand the screen over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Before I share my screen, I want to tell a little story. That's what just came through as the thing to kind of collect us all in the same place and train our attention to a connected state, so that this is actually a thing we're going to look at as supportive of learning, because we support each other's nervous systems by being connected with our attention. And I slept very badly last night. I had a wonderful experience of learning because I noticed that if I eat late, it really messes up my sleep. So I'm a little bit, for any of those of you who want to practice with their attention, to bring it in to help me ground myself. That means you would stay focused and kind of attuning to my voice. And I'm tuning into my body to share my voice in a way that's resonant in my body and what I feel from my connection with all of you. That's also another skill. We're going to talk about it and some research related to those things. So I'm going to go and share my screen. Thank you for being here. It feels really good already despite my not sleeping. And let's see how this works. Okay, I'm going to start out. I love this image. Firstly, there's a small part of ourselves, right? All the time. You know, if you think about in the field of psychology, how if we really want to get through all the layers of healing necessary to be fully present with our kids, with our students, with ourselves, with our partners, we actually need to go back in time and kind of attend to wherever it is that our younger self maybe didn't have enough support and holding. And in this world, that pretty much applies to every person in some way or another. And I also found out from doing my genetic profile that I'm part Asian, which was very exciting. I've spent my whole life thinking I was 100% Italian, but there's lots of interesting things came up in that profile, Mediterranean. So that was really exciting for me. And let's see what's next. Yes, I'm needing to say this. I have no relevant financial relationships, as Jennifer already said. It's a really weird sentence, but it is true, at least in terms of this lecture. So before we get into the didactic academic part, another layer of us getting connected to each other is getting connected to our own bodies. This is going to actually start to shift the nervous system and have us start to, even remotely, this is something that's been demonstrated, that we can stabilize each other. We can practice co-regulating of our nervous systems through a screen. And the secret sauce of that is our attention, the conscious mind being connected to physical sensation. So we're going to do a little before. So before, you might write down or note to yourself some general sensations or feelings. So I'm personally very tired. I'm also really happy. Am I frustrated? A little bit with this tech because I found out last minute I could have put my presenter notes on the screen. But anyway, this is the first time I'm using this Gmail, Google Slides, and slide deck. So it's exciting. It's a challenge. And then physical stuff. Like, where do you feel tension? Do you have any pain? How easy is it to really get your full breath? Like when I tuned in just now, I noticed I wasn't breathing and I wasn't feeling my body all the way down to the ground. So now that I'm feeling, I'm like, oh yes, I do have a little buzzing in the sole of my left foot. And you can see as I started to feel that, my voice is slowing down. Like my whole system is like, oh yes, coming a little bit into present time. These are just suggestions. My low back actually is a little tight, but on the left side. So you note these to yourselves, or you can type them in the chat if sharing helps you register your experience. I can't see the chat, but Jennifer can. Okay, I don't know. I just got a note that said participants can see your application. Okay, so before we dive into this grounding practice, and then we'll get to the objectives, more organized slides of data. I just want to tell you the actually highest yield benefit you could get out of this hour that we have together, or 40 minutes, is to be present and enjoy it, right? There's studies that show that if we're actually enjoying our physical and emotional experience, we learn some many fold more efficiently, right? Life is meant to be enjoyed. Well, this is obviously demonstrated with studies for decades in classrooms with children, but we're not different. And there are studies that were done by this Dr. Karen Purvis that I'm trying to get my hands on, but I'm having a hard time. Anyway, she says evidence that human physiology is fine-tuned for learning through play. And of course, all children know that, and then we forget this, and then hopefully we remind each other as much as we can, including, the students that we teach in the clinical environment. So scientists have determined recently that it takes approximately 400 repetitions to create a new synapse in the brain, unless it's done with play, in which case it takes between 10 and 20 repetitions. And I might add breathing to that, and humor and connection, right? Those are all aspects of play. And they're all aspects of the social engagement system, which we're also going to talk about. So, in order to set ourselves up for full body feeling, which is also full body breathing, it's really important to have a stable base. So I'm going to invite you all to figure out your best augmenting of your seating situation by creating a slant so that 2/3 of your weight can be on your thighs. That creates the stable base that allows the spine to be free and begin to free up the neurons that are required, well, for everything, but certainly for full expansion of the rib cage and freeing up of all the neural pathways. And most of the time in institutional settings, my best bet is to sit on the edge of the chair so I can at least drop the knees a little bit lower. And then I'm releasing the hip flexors. So let's see if I wrote anything else here. Okay. So the basics of this, we're all going to tune into our bodies, and I'm just going to go through a basic series of things I do every time I sit down, except now it's second nature. This is all actually really second nature stuff that we dissociate from And then coming back is like riding a bicycle. It's very innate, but in the beginning it takes a little paying attention. So the first thing we do is feel our connection to the ground through our feet and our weight. And let's see if you can actually let your feet drop a little bit more. And you might notice it is easy or not so easy to visualize roots going down into the earth. Remember, our nervous systems don't actually know the difference between real and imagined. So your body will respond by feeling supported and allowing for more relaxation. And then the same thing, we're just going to move up. The seat, tune into the quality of your weight in the seat. How is gravity meeting you in your seat? And you might tune into your sit bones. I mean, we're all taught to sit on our sit bones. We want some of our weight to be there. And if you don't remember what those are, you just put a hand under your hip, and it's big bone that comes right into your hand. And I have this, already my body's starting to be moving a little bit in a wave motion. I mean, I use this contact like a ball bearing, right? We want our central axis, we want our whole central nervous system to be free to fluctuate subtly. And that's the osteopathic part. All of this is also yoga. It's all one thing, right? How is the body best supported in moment-to-moment practice, not necessarily setting aside a time, but how can we be in some state of optimized breathing, presence, connection every minute of the day? It's second nature, actually. So let's see, what's the next thing? Activating the pelvic floor in yoga. This is called the bandhas, but it's actually also the sacral plexus. We're stimulating the parasympathetics. So just a little gentle squeeze, just knowing that it's there, no gripping. Tuning back into the whole, right? Do you notice, like, if you're trying too hard, make it simpler. Just tune into whatever's going to let your shoulders melt. You're in the position that's easiest. Choose, well, my position continues to shift. This is what children do, right? Where nothing is actually static. We make it static. Choose the position that facilitates the easiest breath, the least effort, the most pleasure. And then if you're ambitious and you want to add a few more things, we'll just gently continue up the spine, pulling in of the umbilicus, belly button toward the spine. It uses the fleshy front of the torso to meet the spine, and it's stable. That's one stable serpent-like action, right? When we dissociate the front of our bodies, which poor sitting does. Sitting in a hole will do that. The way we're sitting allows for the front body, the anterior body, to activate and become supportive of a powerful mobile spine. A dynamic state that can support all neural connections and blood flow. Right? We hear all about this in Pilates and yoga. It's very foundational, and it feels really good. And it wakes up the diaphragm, and it makes the adrenals happy. Okay, next thing I wrote is this sense of full body breathing, which is 360 degrees, right? We hear belly breathing, but actually pelvis, the pelvic floor breathes, and the posterior body is so essential. Breathing out through the kidney, renal, adrenal, adrenaline, freeing up that whole, it's like the visceral hub, right? Right. The Chinese medicine calls this area the middle burner. And it's very essential to connecting with our emotions. Visceral sensation, connecting with gut guidance of your gut feelings. Feeling safe in the world so you can relax and breathe. Because if you can't connect to your gut, you will not have your main navigator. That was a big one. Also encouraging you again not to try too hard. Just tuning into remembering how much this was for me when I first tried to do it all at once. The heart. Right? Tuning into something. You can find a memory of something you're grateful for, or just the image of a pet or a person you love, and notice like right away my whole body brightened. And there's reams of research on how tuning into the heart shifts the nervous system. We're going to look at a little bit of that, but it's absolutely, possibly one of the most powerful ways to self-regulate and influence better connections in the world and healing. I'm just waiting for, I'm indulging in this particular step, although it doesn't need to go away. And then a big piece. We're going to go into specifics of why it's so important to rest the tongue across the roof of the mouth. Also stimulates cranial nerve 10, vagus nerve, and it also recalls the experience of breastfeeding to the nervous system. So if our tongue learns to live there, we're actually having this self-soothing influence every time we swallow, 1,000 to 2,000 times a day, happening in the background without us having to do any work to receive it. Yeah, that was big. It changes everything. It kind of is an ignition for the whole central nervous system to connect both toward the sky and into the ground. Right? All of yoga is about lengthening, connecting to the crown, the sky, and rooting into the ground. Opposite actions, creating space and expansion. And here's a part where we actually can seal the lips, rest the tongue completely across the roof of the mouth. And I'm going to show you the correct position later with images, but you can do both those things and still let the jaws suspend. And this might be the most powerful osteopathic piece we're going to practice, because on the inhale, the mouth can gently open, maybe a millimeter, and on the exhale, gently close, because what we're doing is we're rebooting ourselves to the homeostatic, steady state of full body integrated breathing with this larger system cycling we call primary respiration in osteopathy, and lung breath, which we call secondary respiration. Respiration is a big part of osteopathy, life, healing, yoga. All the languages, all the lineages of the world have their own way of recognizing the primacy of the breath in supporting life. All right, and I think the last bit is that our crown reaches for the sky. I actually usually do the top and bottom first, but I didn't do that. I'll set myself in a chair, find my stable base, at least connect to the sky and the ground, put my tongue on the palate, and then open my computer. Or then, sit in my meeting with the residents and, connect with them all before we get our day started. Very, very powerful practice. Okay. So I think we'll just sit in this for a minute. Make sure we kind of find some kind of steady state here that we might manage to bring with us through the entire talk. So my goal, my intention is to sense this subtle, resonant entrainment experience I'm having with my bones, with the space around me, with the ground, with the sky, with you. And it's a certain it's a certain tempo, right? It's a certain tempo that can actually have me share words in a way that's resonant with your system, so that we don't overshoot or undershoot and we hit some nice flow state together. That's really fun and efficient. Okay. So in the interest of time, and you can stay where you are, you don't even need to look at the screen. You could be lying if you want to. You can be in any position to do this. And I'm doing my slides in relation to workplace environment, desk work. So I'm going to reference seating, but in the interest of moving along, you can stay where you are. And for those of you who want to, go back and do another inventory on the body, and maybe revisit some of the things you wrote down, and note to yourself or share in the chat if anything has changed. I would say I feel like I'm taking up more space. Like I also feel a little more homogeneous. Like, yes, I'm still holding a little more tension on this left side, but I feel a little more, well, I do feel actually some buzzing everywhere, like this very enlivening and grounding. My feet feel heavier. My neck feels more relaxed. My jaw is always a thing. Okay, so do you feel a change? And describe any changes you feel to yourself, or share them in the chat. Okay, we're doctors. Remember, let's get going here. Okay, I'm going to show you this little video, right? Because I could tell you all kinds of things, but this is a beautiful video of primary and secondary respiration integrated that I have been trying to get permission to share from this Belgian osteopath, and I've tried so hard, and it's not a new video, and he hasn't given it to me, but I'm sharing it with giving him credit, which I think is kosher so far. So good. Okay, let's see if it works. So the animation is amazing. It's a full body. I hope you can see my cursor. Can you, Jennifer? Great. So we're looking at 7 levels from the hypothalamus, including the pituitary, the thyroid. These are plexes, neurovascular plexes, cardiac plexus, the middle burner that I was talking about before, the solar plexus, and how the motion of all the diaphragms in the body, of which there are actually 3 actual ones and several functional ones. Here's a functional one, the thoracic outlet, the cycling of the way the neck and shoulders change when we breathe. This is the familiar thoracic abdominal diaphragm and the pelvic floor. So at an endpoint of a meditation for me or an osteopathic treatment is that all of these diaphragms are synchronized. And this comes along with the nervous system landing in a regulated state. That is what osteopathy is to me. Have we achieved full system regulation and optimized breath function. I'm going to show you that last part again, because this is this end part here where the whole body goes into this cycling. I wish it was a longer segment. See all the 4 diaphragms moving in phase, and the whole body expanding and contracting as one. And when you can achieve that, and you're moving around your office or your home, like pretty much everyone's in an amazing mood. And that is a thing that happens because your whole system becomes bright. Well, obviously we become more, it's like we turn on and then everyone else turns on around us. This is the concept of co-regulation that we're going to talk about. It's kind of incredible. So let's go through the objectives. By the end of this time together, you should be able to recreate this dynamic, natural sitting behavior, full body breathing, and really, you know, there are going to be some great slides you could take with a screenshot and keep on your phone. I have a better one later to cue you for all the little pieces. We're going to learn high yield basics of modulating your own nervous system through awareness and behavior. Jennifer, good fluid motion. I can see her. Let's see. Identify and explore functional tongue behavior. This is everything. I say having right tongue function is like having an osteopath living in your head. Like when I teach my patients these things, they are so much more self-sufficient, and then I only have to help when things get complicated, which is way more interesting for me. I'm no longer in the rescue business because it's not fun for anybody. Utilize awareness and social engagement to support health and communication and enjoyment in the workplace and learning efficiency for ourselves and our students. It's kind of like a put your own mask on first kind of thing. I do see some chat. Do I need to check the chat, Jennifer? Okay, great. So here we are, themes. In other words, what else did I write here?
You muted yourself.
Okay, I got a little lost there. So we're doing the themes in different words of the objectives that I just shared. Feel over formula. Sensation is the language of the body. Feeling. This is feeling school, right? The entire field of trauma and which is we're recognizing is a massive component of healing for every single person. So many physiologic diseases relate back to the ability to process emotions, and we're going to look at some of that research. This is the basis of the whole field of somatic therapy. Social engagement, connection to ourselves, each other, and I have to minimize this, and the earth. It's all one thing actually. Co-regulation, how it is that we regulate ourselves and one another. And I think there was one more thing. Full body breathing is the gateway to all of the above. So you could just forget the meaning of everything and breathe, and it's still going to happen. Breathe really, though. Okay, let me put you back there. So all of these are means by which we achieve stability in the nervous system, healthy connection, healing, and fulfillment in life. And we get to model these things for our students, our kids, our partners, others in the community, right? This is a time in history where we are being called to learn to be cooperative and intersupportive. Life is hard, right? Maybe it's for this reason that we need to move in this direction as an imperative. And it's also beautiful. It's like life is more beautiful when we're present and we are engaged. And now let me see if I can go back and get the next slide. Okay, so now we're going to just do a little shout out to the osteopathic bit Again, I'm going to repeat everything that's important a couple times. It's all about respiration. So we do talking about specific anatomical things. My slides, oh, there we go. Release of mechanical hinges. When we sit and breathe in a full body way, or stand and breathe, walk and breathe, lie and breathe, we're actually supporting this integrated, subtle flexing of the entire skeleton, right? We do the work of making sure that can happen. If there was birth trauma and fixation in the skull or falls on the, then what can happen is this full system breath can suspend. So we intervene to make sure that the person actually can do this essential behavior. So this primary respiration state correlates with nervous system regulation. I already said that. And this is fun because I'm telling you, we were already experts. Like my little one, she just knew, but we're born breathing this way. Like if you look at a baby, the jaw slightly flexes open with the inhale, the entire body's pulsing, everything's free. They look more like a fluid than a solid. Well, we're also still more fluid than solid. Especially if you look down at the level subcellular, molecular, and at atomic level, we're more space. We're pretty much space and compressed energy. That's just what it is. I didn't make it up. So you could possibly have heard terms like, honestly, most people don't know what osteopathy is. That's just a fact. Then other term is osteopathy in the cranial field. That's William Garner Sutherland, the father of the cranial concept, who discovered that the bones of the body actually betray structurally that there's a subtle motion. It's very much supported by the principles of engineering. The bones are shaped based on the forces that are acting upon them, and our bones are shaped in ways that betray that subtle motions and continue to occur throughout life. And then most of us have heard about craniosacral therapy. I'm grateful that this field exists because people understand more about these principles, even though mostly they don't understand what osteopathy is. Yeah, remember, you're born an expert. And now we're just going to remember a little bit of what we're born with. Switching gears, but not really. This feeling business. So in relation to this polyvagal theory concept and the trauma world, I can't tell you how many gut disorders I have aided in resolving through the resetting of the nervous system. I just had a SIBO patient, 50% symptoms gone after one session of doing this reset on the whole full body autonomic balance. And then after 3 sessions gone. It's pretty epic. And again, we can do a lot of this for ourselves. But I picked this quote out of a paper. I was just blown away by it because I know it, but I don't see it in print. 80% of illness is related to autonomic dysfunction. Well, I actually went to Stephen Porges and I said, who I met, he came to Convocation, our big annual conference in 2010, which is when I was exposed to these principles of social engagement and co-regulation that we're going to talk more about. And he said he didn't remember where he'd written that. He's written so much, so many amazing papers and books over the last 2 decades plus. But he said he believes it. And he said that he actually thinks if he had to put money on it, the number would be higher. And then we have Erwin Core, who's like a mainstay. I think he's passed, physiologist in the osteopathic world, who said 90+% way back in the 60s and 70s. So it's important, right? We overlook, and I'm in a lot of study groups on Facebook with physicians looking for solutions to these chronic complex conditions, and we're not taught how to integrate this piece. So I'm going to give you some resources of how to do that as clinicians for yourselves, your patients, and your students. So this idea of feeling being the gateway, right? Feeling kind of opens up the whole thing. This is it. Fight, flight, freeze, hide. That's it's excess sympathetic or parasympathetic. We're not just shifting to parasympathetic. We're shifting to a regulated balance of parasympathetic, sympathetic. And the key to this is interoception, being able to feel the cues of your body, the symptoms in your body. Put attention on them. The research shows that I think it's 90 seconds of attention on any physical sensation will shift it. If it's an emotion or cell memory from a past event, 90 seconds of attention is all it takes to start to create movement. However, 90 seconds is a lot if you're not used to feeling. As a matter of fact, feeling can be terrifying if you're not used to feeling because there's so much backlog. And that's a co-regulation concept. Like, don't try to necessarily do it on your own. Ask for help. Get some containment and grounding, and then we end up, that's what we do as physicians. We listen, we get present, we create space so the person can just get in touch with some of these things, whether it's a resident we're talking to or a family member or ourselves. And then the whole field of addiction. This is not new, but my first, this article is phenomenal. I'd screenshot that or come back to it later, talking about how addiction isn't anything really but a dysfunction of disconnection. And that when we start to recognize that and give people back the support they need to create stability in their nervous systems, speaking back to this communal theme that we're being moved toward in this time of duress, that really it's about showing up for each other and connecting. And I have more data on who this guy is. I have all these notes, but I'm just going to run through things because I don't think we have a lot of time. So all the references are there. Here I go back into the slides. So Thich Nhat Hanh said, when the crowded refugees boats met with storms or pirates, even if everyone panicked, all would be lost. But if one person stayed calm, it was enough. Like what I've heard stories where, maybe it was Yusuf who told this story. I don't remember. It was like, maybe it was Thich Nhat Hanh. They rescued a bunch of refugees, and there was a monk in the boat. And for concentric rings around the monk, who was calm and grounded and holding space, people were calm. And then as you radiated further from this reference, his nervous system as a reference, people started to be less stable. That's real. And you can go out in your life and practice it. And the thing is, the strongest signal in the room wins. You become the leader if you hold the strongest pole, right? You can command a room. We all have this experience, but this is really the science behind it. Well, Thich Nhat Hanh, is he science? I don't know. He's experienced. Here's the science. Nobel laureate Ilya he's Russian. I'm gonna make physicist Prigogine. I think I got this from one of Jacqueline's quotes. Dr. Chan, she's on here. Small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to lift the entire system to higher order. So there's math backing what I'm talking about, and what Dr. Porges is talking about, and the somatic therapy world is talking about, and the addiction world is talking about. And I found this study related to medical education that found that we can support medical undergraduates' development by acknowledging that the ability to self-regulate implies the ability to engage in meaningful interactions with others to support learning processes. Okay, I'm just going to move on. I have so many notes on all these things, but and then I want to quote a breathing expert, a really pretty famous guy, who said that when we're breathing well, our voice is more resonant and our words are more easily received. Connecting and learning happen more efficiently. So if you tune to your breath, you're going to share words at a cadence, tempo, lyric that is able to train, naturally capture the attention of your people you're teaching or whoever without you having to be forceful, right? You want them to magnetized towards you because of affinity, not because of any kind of forcing. This works beautifully with teenagers, by the way. And there was something I wanted to say about that, but I don't remember. It'll come to me. Okay, so I've been talking a long time. What's my time, Jennifer, right now?
We have 15 minutes left.
I have 15. Okay, so let's stretch. So pandiculation is a term I learned when I was learning about fascia and cell memory and how we really actually need to not have stagnant fascia if we want to open up all the electrical channels and allow the full body breath to move through the whole body, as well as not burden the nervous system with excess unnecessary weight. Right, so movement during your clinic time, during taking 5 minutes with the residents to do stretching or having a yoga at lunch or something like that. All right, let's hurry it up because I want to get questions. Here is maybe the screenshotable image I made for you all last night, actually. Don't forget, let's go through them one at a time. Well, I'm going to actually in a moment. Let's do that by the next slide. Visualization, it's actually real. That imagined stimuli, the body responds similarly to imagined as real, right? You can imagine a lion's attacking you. It isn't, but basic stress that we deal with every day has the similar effect on our nervous systems, even if no threat actually exists. Just imagining a threat, just imagining that we have roots there and we're grounded and we're safe tells the body those things. So, very useful. Now, don't forget adrenal, renal, adrenaline, epinephrine, cortisol, right there at the thoracic diaphragm. Right underneath, it's actually retroperitoneal behind the rib cage, but the motion of the diaphragm, this full body breathing, is essential to just physiologically allowing the kidneys to not become literally contracted. I treat people and I have these little like shrink wrap little, and their blood pressure's through the roof. Well, of course it is. They forgot to breathe. Trauma, stress has us do that. And there was something else I wanted to say about that. Oh, yes. The position of sitting with your knees lower than your hips starts to unshorten the psoas. We're all sitting in holes and our psoas get short, and it also irritates the kidney and drags on the diaphragm. So having this neutral posture is something that then has it when you get up out of your chair. You walk in a way that doesn't grab on your diaphragm and your low back. People say, out of nowhere, I have sciatica, just happened out of nowhere. No, it's not out of nowhere. It came from this incremental shrink wrap shortening of the whole body, really. And then we get these vulnerable areas like the lumbar discs that the psoas is the biggest skeletal muscle in the body. It shortens and then it pulls the vertebrae together, and then you get your incremental disc compression, peripheral nerve compression. And I'm now saying to people like, no, you didn't have a car accident. But if you sit unconsciously for a year, to my hands on the table, it's as though you did, right? So then we start to breathe and we start to undo that. A year of amazing breathing can heal your whole body. Frankly, a week, a day, you'll immediately feel more enjoyment. And then I concluded, this is not a new study. I don't know why I chose it. Maybe because I like the image. But there are gazillions of papers over the last 2 decades by Dr. McCready on, is this one of his papers? I think I'm going to get to another one. Yeah, Roland McCready, PhD. Studies how coherence in the heart, positive emotions, and gratitude affect the whole nervous system and the whole body, right? There's some kind of, 40-fold communication pathways from the heart to the brain, not the other way around. The heart is the driver of the nervous system. And his research drives that home. He also has great YouTube videos. And I have great resources. You guys can all email me through my website and ask me. I love that. I also have a study group on Facebook where everyone's invited to come talk through it. And there's my quote, because I have to say it. It's true. In fact, Yusuf discovered that, and I've been doing this since, like asking a patient or yourself just to put your tongue on the roof of your mouth when you can feel yourself checking out or getting stressed, it brings you back really fast. And I do less work opening up someone's head or pelvis if their tongue is resting on the palate. And then I have them do a lot of the things that are in that image. Feel your feet, please. Ah, there we go. We can feel some neural connection happening in lower parts of the body. It's always about bringing the energy down, right? And the attention is what sparks the physiology to change. That is really, really amazing. I did my whole thesis on that concept, actually. So, tongue posture. It's about the tongue resting across the whole palate. Now, most of us, our tongue didn't even grow there, so it could be too big. And you might have to inch it forward to create enough space in the airway in this posture. It's okay if you have to touch your teeth, but the natural proportions of things don't include touching the teeth. So sometimes we have to rework all of this with a tongue therapist. It's a whole, field in and of itself, and then we get the dentist involved. But if we can do it right, we can often avoid braces altogether. And braces, frankly, aren't even the treatment because it doesn't address the entire skull being underdeveloped because the tongue wasn't doing its right job. Braces often add insult to injury. So do your research before you venture into orthodontia. And I wrote a paper on that, which summarizes the topic as well as possible. It's one of the first things on my website, my first set of blogs. Super important here. Train the tongue to connect with the palate posteriorly. There are 4 bones that meet here, and this junction is really high yield. The back of the tongue, every time you swallow, sends a wave through that intersection that stimulates the midbrain and basically activates or allows the skull to maintain this wave transmissibility that we need to achieve this whole body gentle expanding and contracting natural baseline. And then right there. Oh yes, the k sound right in the back. Can you even do it? A lot of people can't quite get that posterior tongue up to the palate because of other features. Sometimes there are frenums, little vestigial pieces of tissue that don't allow for it. Now this is funny. We're going to switch gears here quickly to a few posture things. We're almost done. And I can't tell you how many images I find of correct posture on the web. Well, this is not correct. This person said, oh, this one's terrible, this one's terrible. This one's actually not too bad, except the head's forward. This is stiff. This guy can't breathe at all. He's sitting in a hole. He's having to work to hold up his torso. His hip flexors are not loose. So I can just tell by looking at this, he can't breathe. Don't do it. Do this. Create a stable base. Find a way to put more of your weight on the thighs, and look at how effortless this is. You can almost feel her breathing. Spine's nice and straight. The chin is tucked. The spine is long. You know how we're basically talking about mountain pose in yoga in our chair, Tadasana. This is 99% of all images on the web for meditation are this. No breathing happening. I don't get it. I don't know how people achieve their goals with meditation with a body that can't move. Next, screenshot this maybe just to look at the proportions of how you might create full body breathing supported in the workplace. Of course, you have access to all these slides for later.
There's a question about adding a wedge for chairs and whether you recommend that.
You mean like this? Wait, oh darn it. I really, really, really recommend it. It's a good way to quick fix cheap without going out and getting a fancy chair. And I don't make money on them. The link's on my website. It's my favorite one. The only sturdy enough one, because most of them are memory foam and they don't do anything. And then I actually use a rolly chair. I'm wearing, I don't think I can show you, but I flip it. I have a nice cushy rolly chair. The back of the chair is on my belly, and then my knees can hang down. I wish I could show you. I don't know. Maybe I can in a second. I think we're done. Oh, okay. So this is the basic proportion. You can modify for your couch, for your car. Cars are a little tricky because you will have to raise your head to look forward, but you want to have your bones squarely supported in this neutral position. And then honestly, you can play with it. Like your body knows you want to check in with yourself and find your sweet spot. And it's always changing, right? There's no proper position. It's like a dynamic behavior that you allow your body, your sensing, dynamic sensing, constantly attuned to nuanced changes that your body wants to make. Your body wants to be moving all the time, just like a baby. Main takeaway: when seated, create a stable base to support the spine, to allow fluid movement, full body breathing, and stable regulated nervous system. Attention is the secret sauce. We osteopaths know this, right? It's kind of magical what can happen with attention. It is powerful. That's why we double blind our science. We correct for this, annoying variable, but you can actually, the secret to life, I think, is putting it to the use that it is intended for. Right? How did we used to find water? Know what the weather was doing? Where's the predator? We used to read the land. We knew where to plant our crops, and we just knew things. We don't know these things anymore, but we do know them. We actually have I believe, archives of innate understanding. We just have to switch the setting on the dial, right? We're in culture, we're all regulated up here. Once you ratchet the nervous system down, you open up, all of this innate knowing starts to just come through. Kind of amazing. Where attention goes, neural firing flows and neural wiring grows. I like to reference the research of Dan Siegel. He is a clinical psychiatrist at UCLA who's done a lot of research into the power of attention. He's the head of the MindSight Institute and has written many books, and he's very integral with this whole, field of body connection and attention and cell memory and trauma and all that. I think we're done. Bring your attention into your body, ignite your fluid nature, and connect with all that is life. I love the practice of continuum movement. I call it self-osteopathy. This is a quote from the founder, Emily Conrad. And these are, must be present to win, my favorite last slide. Resources. Like this book is about osteopathy and continuum movement. It's my textbook for my students. They love it. It's really beautiful, poetic, entertaining, scientific, goes into embryology, physiology, tells stories, discusses all these principles of what it is to be, what is the nature of the body actually. And I love Beth Pettingill-Riley as my favorite continuum teacher. She has classes online. The Breathable Body, Dr. Robert Littman, not doctor. He's the breath analyst who worked with Andrew Weil for years and years as a preceptor at his clinic. And he does online classes. I have my study group. And I have my website I've written on all this stuff under my blogs, free. And also, you can write to me there.